Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do. Alright guys, we are rolling through the back half of this project. We're going to do 100 reviews of Ray Bradbury stories. We now have somewhere around 45 left to go. Today I want to talk about, very briefly, The Fruit at the Bottom of the Bowl from 1948. It is when midnight. William Acton finds himself standing over his friend Donald Huxley's recently strangled body. He looks at his hands. He sort of marvels at the fact that this simple act of strangulation has sort of sculpted this man into something else. His eyes have glazed over. He's positioned in a certain way, never to move again until he is placed that way, sort of like clay. It's a very strange way of looking at things. It's kind of strange, serial killer-esque. So we're not quite sure yet who this William Acton is. But Acton, we learn eventually, he'd come there looking for his wife. Huxley said, even if I knew where she was or whatever, I wouldn't tell you anyway. And instead he goes around, basically taking the man around the house, showing him, oh, these beautiful books I have, look at the binding, look at this this bowl and this very fine pottery and these chairs and these couches and this cutlery and all of these fine items that he has. So if Huxley is in fact messing around with Acton's wife, the presumption here is that he was trying to brag about the type of life that he could give her. Look how much stuff he has. I mean, that's obviously what the thought process is going to be for Acton. However, we never learn one way or another whether his wife was in fact with this man or if he was just in his jealousy and his rage of losing his woman, sort of making this all up. But he soon realizes that this sort of tour through the house has resulted in the possibility that his fingerprints could be anywhere. So he begins to clean. First, he cleans the body around the man's neck, and then he starts cleaning the floor around his body in the immediate vicinity. It goes from 1 foot to 2 foot to 3 foot. And he realizes, I could have touched that book, I could have touched that mirror, I could have touched that doorknob. So he goes through the house thoroughly, place after place. It begins with the obvious places, doorknobs, things like that he very well could have touched. But he becomes increasingly paranoid, increasingly frantic. And over time, he finds himself cleaning the house from top to bottom, even at high places where he could not possibly have touched in his time there. He even polishes the fruit at the bottom of the bowl. I mean, why would he touch it? It's this example of his growing paranoia. Eventually, 6 hours later, 6 a.m., he is in the attic, cleaning the old, stored away furniture that hasn't been used in years. The house is perfect, it's sparkling, it's spotless. And unbeknownst to him, somebody comes up behind him. It is a police officer, probably gun drawn, and says, freeze, you're under arrest. So this is like an interesting sort of character study on crimes of passion and possibly, maybe there's more to that than just crime of passion. At his first initial moments, there's this possibility that just the way he was sort of ogling the body and looking at the beauty of his work suggests that maybe, he had some sort of killer, sort of psychopath buried deep inside him that was brought out by this event. Probably triggered by jealousy, if this woman was ever real to begin with. But one way or another, this part of him was unleashed. But then, after that, after what could have begun as a crime of passion, this thing unleashed, it grows in paranoia. He begins to clean the entire house. He imagines fingerprints. Actually, you touch one place, and if you don't wipe it off, it could multiply, and suddenly there's millions of fingerprints all over the house. So that was the way he explained it in his own imagination. And it makes you wonder, if you extrapolated this and he wasn't caught immediately, what would happen? Is this how a murderer feels? This is how a criminal feels? They do something wrong. Do they ever live at peace again? you occasionally hear stories about people who are convicted of murder, 20, 30 years after the fact based on new evidence. Is there a point at which they think they get away with it and maybe go on living their life, and do they learn to get past the guilt and the negative mental side effects of sort of being in hiding in a sense? Would he ever be able to live at peace again had he not been caught? I'm thinking no. And I think, to me, going back to this question, is he a monster, or was it simply a crime of passion? I think the verdict for me is that this crime was a crime of passion. It was not in his typical character, and that the way he methodically cleaned this house and sort of suspected that his fingerprints could be anywhere, and sort of became manic about it. I think this is a man who did something that he obviously regrets. He's not a monster. He is a human, and ultimately he would have to turn himself in. And probably really the reason why he stayed in that house and wasted all that time at the scene of the crime is that, in a sense, he wanted to be caught, because obviously this would torment him forever. I think maybe had the cops not showed up, he probably would have turned himself in like within a day, because he could not live with what he had done, and is really sort of manifesting it. It's subconsciously, but it's manifesting it in reality with this sort of manic behavior. The Fruit at the Bottom of the Bowl, Ray Bradbury, 1948. Short story, 4 or 5 pages, but a lot to think about, which is clear. I highly recommend it. One of the better stories from this collection that I've read recently. Check it out if you have not already. Also, dig into the playlist here and check out some of the other reviews I've done thus far. And we'll have another 45 or so coming for you in the very near future, if this is your thing. So, alright guys, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, and I will see you again soon.